The Curse of Blackwood Manor. Deep in the heart of the forest, there stands a house forgotten by time. A house where shadows whisper, where the past refuses to die, and where the living are never welcome. This is the story of Blackwood Manor, a place where the line between the living and the dead blurs, and where those who enter may never leave. Blackwood Manor stood at the edge of town, a crumbling relic of a forgotten era. Its windows were shattered, its walls covered in ivy, and its gates rusted shut. No one had lived there for over a century, but the townsfolk still whispered about the family who had once called it home, and the curse that had destroyed them. The story began in the late 1800s, when the Blackwood family was the wealthiest and most influential in the region. They were known for their lavish parties and their mysterious ways. But tragedy struck when the youngest child, a boy named Thomas, died under strange circumstances. The family was never the same after that. One by one, they vanished until the manor was left empty, a shell of its former glory. Over the years, many had tried to uncover the truth about the Blackwoods, but none had succeeded. Some claimed to hear screams coming from the manor at night, while others swore they saw shadowy figures moving behind the broken windows. The townsfolk avoided the place, warning their children to stay away. But curiosity has a way of drawing people in, and for Sarah and her friends, the allure of Blackwood Manor was too strong to resist. It started as a dare. Sarah, Mark, Lisa, and Jake were sitting around a campfire, sharing ghost stories when someone mentioned the manor. "I bet none of you would spend the night there," Mark said with a grin. The others laughed, but Sarah, always the adventurous one, took it as a challenge. "I'll do it," she said, "but I'm not going alone." The next evening, the group arrived at the manor, armed with flashlights, snacks, and a camera to document the exploration. The gates creaked open as if inviting them in, and the air grew colder with every step they took. The front door was ajar, its hinges rusted and squeaking in the wind. Inside, the manor was a labyrinth of decaying grandeur. Dust-covered furniture sat untouched, and portraits of the Blackwood family lined the walls, their eyes seeming to follow the intruders. The group laughed nervously, trying to shake off the unease, but the atmosphere was oppressive, as if the house itself was alive and watching them. They decided to split up to cover more ground. Sarah and Mark took the east wing, while Lisa and Jake explored the west. As Sarah and Mark walked down a dimly lit hallway, they heard a faint, rhythmic tapping coming from upstairs. "Did you hear that?" Sarah asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Mark nodded, his face pale. They followed the sound to a closed door at the end of the hallway. The tapping grew louder as they approached, and Sarah's hand trembled as she reached for the doorknob. The room inside was a nursery, frozen in time. A dusty crib sat in the corner, its mobile spinning slowly despite the still air. As they explored the room, the tapping stopped, replaced by the sound of a child's laughter. It was soft and melodic at first, but it grew louder, more distorted, until it echoed through the house. Sarah and Mark froze, their hearts pounding. Then the crib began to rock violently, and the laughter turned into a scream. They ran, stumbling down the stairs and through the darkened halls. But the house seemed to shift around them, the layout changing with every turn. Doors slammed shut, and whispers filled the air, urging them to stay. They called out for Lisa and Jake, but there was no response. Meanwhile, Lisa and Jake had their own encounter. In the west wing, they found a grand ballroom, its chandelier hanging precariously from the ceiling. As they stepped inside, the room was filled with the sound of music, a haunting waltz that seemed to come from nowhere. Shadows danced across the walls, and Lisa swore she saw figures twirling in the darkness. Jake tried to pull her away, but the music grew louder, more frantic. The chandelier began to sway, and the shadows closed in around them. Lisa screamed as a cold hand grabbed her arm, and Jake fought to pull her free. They managed to escape the ballroom, but the house wasn't done with them. The group reunited in the foyer, their faces pale and their breaths ragged. "We need to get out of here," Sarah said, her voice trembling. But as they turned to leave, the front door slammed shut, and the whispers grew louder. The portraits on the walls began to bleed, their eyes glowing with an unnatural light. One by one, Sarah's friends disappeared. Mark was the first, pulled into the shadows by an unseen force. Lisa followed, her screams echoing through the halls. Jake tried to fight back, but the house was too powerful. Sarah was left alone, her flashlight flickering as she ran through the endless corridors. She finally found the front door, but as she reached for the handle, she felt a cold hand grip her shoulder. She turned to see a woman in a tattered gown, her face pale and her eyes hollow. The woman whispered a single word, "Stay." Sarah woke up in the town square the next morning, her clothes torn and her body bruised. She couldn't remember how she had escaped, but she knew one thing for certain. Blackwood Manor wasn't done with her. Every night since then, Sarah hears the tapping. It starts softly, like a distant echo, but it grows louder, closer, until it's right outside her window. And when she looks, she sees the woman in the tattered gown, her hollow eyes staring back, whispering the same word over and over, "Stay." Sarah knows it's only a matter of time before the manor claims her, just as it claimed her friends. Because the Curse of Blackwood Manor doesn't end, it only waits. The Curse of Blackwood Manor is a reminder that some places are best left undisturbed. But the question remains, what would you do if you heard the whispers? Would you stay or run? Subscribe for more chilling tales. And remember, some stories never end.